The alarms weren't supposed to go off that night. At Outpost K-47, alarms only meant two things, a cave collapse, or the dragon. The siren screamed through the mining yard, echoing across the dusty orange landscape. Workers dropped their tools. Heavy cargo cranes froze mid-lift. Even the giant drilling machines slowly powered down. Everyone knew what that alarm meant. "It's back," someone whispered. A nervous silence spread across the colony. For weeks, the miners had been talking about it in low voices inside the mess hall. A creature the size of a transport truck, covered in bright orange scales that reflected the sun like burning metal. The orange alien dragon. It had appeared 3 weeks ago near the outer mining tunnels. At first people thought it was just another dangerous creature native to the planet. But then equipment started getting destroyed. Cargo crates torn apart. Drill heads crushed. Entire shipments of rare ore scattered across the desert like someone had deliberately sabotaged them. And somehow, every time the creature appeared, it would simply watch the humans for a moment, and leave. That made the miners hate it even more. "It's mocking us," one worker had said. Another swore the dragon understood what it was doing. Either way, the colony had made up its mind. The orange dragon was a problem. And tonight, it had come back. Dust rolled across the open mining yard as workers slowly backed away from the perimeter fence. Floodlights snapped on one by one, washing the dark desert in harsh white light. Then someone pointed. There. At the edge of the worksite, something massive moved. A long shape stepped out from behind a jagged rock formation. Bright orange scales shimmered under the floodlights. The creature was enormous. Its body low to the ground like a predator. A long armored tail dragging behind it. Two folded wings resting along its back like plates of metal. And its eyes. Its eyes glowed with a strange calm intelligence that made the workers uneasy. "No way," a mechanic muttered. "That thing is bigger than last time." Several miners grabbed shock rifles from the equipment rack. "Don't let it get closer." But nobody fired. Because the dragon wasn't acting like a monster. It wasn't roaring. It wasn't attacking. It was walking. Slowly. Calmly. Straight toward the center of the worksite. Toward one person. The foreman. Foreman Daniel Hayes stood near the main drilling platform, arms folded as the rest of the crew backed away behind him. "Boss, move," someone shouted. "That thing's coming right at you." But Hayes didn't move. He had been watching the creature since the moment it appeared. The dragon stopped about 20 feet away. Dust swirled between them. For a moment, nothing happened. No growl. No attack. Just silence. Then the dragon did something that made the entire mining crew freeze. It slowly lifted one of its massive clawed hands. And took another step toward the foreman. The workers raised their rifles. "Hayes! Get back!" But the foreman didn't run. He simply stared at the enormous alien creature walking toward him. And in a calm voice that stunned everyone nearby, he said quietly, "Easy there, big guy." The dragon stopped directly in front of him. The entire colony held its breath. Because at that moment, the most hated creature on the planet was standing face to face with the foreman. And nobody had any idea what it was about to do next. No one moved. Dozens of miners stood frozen across the yard, shock rifles aimed but trembling in their hands. The massive orange alien dragon stood only a few feet away from Foreman Daniel Hayes. Up close, it looked even larger than anyone remembered. Its scales were thick and layered like armor plates, glowing faintly under the floodlights. Each breath it took released a slow cloud of warm air that stirred the dust around its claws. One wrong move, and the foreman would be gone. "Boss, please step back," a worker whispered over the comms. Hayes didn't answer. He was staring directly into the creature's eyes. And what he saw there didn't look like rage. It looked like curiosity. The dragon tilted its head slightly, studying him the same way a scientist might study an unusual machine. Behind Hayes, the crew grew more nervous. "That thing destroyed half our cargo last week," one miner muttered. "Just say the word, boss. We'll drop it." Several rifles locked into firing position. But Hayes slowly raised his hand. "Hold your fire." The order shocked everyone. "Are you crazy?" someone hissed. But Hayes didn't look away from the creature. Because the dragon had just done something strange. Instead of spreading its wings, or opening its jaws, it slowly lifted one of its front claws. The movement was slow. Careful. Almost deliberate. The huge claw hovered in the air between them. The workers stared in confusion. What the hell is it doing? The dragon's massive hand turned slightly. Palm facing sideways. Claws curled in, except for one. Hayes blinked. because suddenly something clicked in his mind. "That can't be," he murmured. Behind him the workers shouted again. "Boss! Move!" But Hayes took one step forward instead. Gasps spread across the yard. "He's lost his mind." The foreman walked right up to the towering alien creature. Now he stood directly beneath its enormous head. The dragon lowered its claws slightly, as if adjusting the height. Waiting. Hayes slowly raised his own hand. Every worker at Outpost K-47 held their breath. One wrong move. One sudden twitch. And the dragon could tear the foreman apart. But Hayes didn't hesitate. He reached forward. And placed his hand inside the massive claw. For a second. Nothing happened. Then the dragon gently closed its claws around his hand. Not crushing. Not threatening. Just enough to grip. And then. It moved its claw up and down once. A handshake. Across the entire mining yard, jaws dropped. Shock rifles lowered. Someone whispered in disbelief. "No way." The most hated creature on the planet. The monster everyone blamed for their losses. Had just calmly walked into the worksite. And shaken the foreman's hand. The dragon released its grip and stepped back slightly. Its glowing eyes scanned the stunned workers. Then it looked back at Hayes. Almost as if it was waiting for his reaction. Hayes slowly lowered his hand. He turned toward his crew, still staring in shock. And said the last thing anyone expected to hear. "I don't think this thing came here to fight us." A deep rumble rolled through the dragon's chest. Not a roar. Something closer to approval. And in that moment, the workers of Outpost K-47 began to realize something terrifying. If the dragon wasn't their enemy, then why had it come to find them? For several long seconds after the handshake, nobody at Outpost K-47 spoke. The mining yard was silent except for the soft wind rolling dust across the metal platforms. The orange alien dragon remained standing near Foreman Daniel Hayes, its enormous wings folded calmly against its back. The workers stared in disbelief. That thing just shook your hand," a mechanic finally said. Another miner lowered his rifle slowly. "Boss, please tell me you understand what's happening." Hayes rubbed his hand, still processing what had just happened. "I'm not sure yet," he admitted. The dragon watched the humans carefully. Its glowing eyes moved from one worker to another, almost like it was studying their reactions. Then something else strange happened. The creature turned its head toward the giant drilling machine in the center of the yard. It walked past Hayes. Several miners panicked again. "It's going for the equipment." But the dragon didn't attack anything. Instead, it stopped beside the main drill tower and looked up at the spinning sensor lights mounted along its frame. The creature slowly raised its claw. Then it tapped the metal casing of a control panel. Once. Twice. The sound echoed through the quiet yard. Everyone stared. "Is it inspecting the drill?" someone asked. Hayes walked closer, carefully keeping his movements slow. The dragon didn't react aggressively. In fact, it stepped slightly aside, as if allowing him to see what it was pointing at. Hayes followed its gaze to the screen on the panel. The display showed underground scan data from earlier that day. Layers of rock. Heat signatures. And something else. A strange pattern deep beneath the mining zone. Hayes frowned. "That's odd." Before he could say anything else, the dragon tapped the panel again. Then it lowered its claw and dragged one sharp tip slowly through the dust on the ground. Workers leaned closer to watch. The dragon began drawing. At first the lines looked random. But after a few seconds, the shape became clearer. It drew the outline of the mining colony. Then it marked the drill site. Then it drew a long, winding tunnel below it. The miners exchanged uneasy glances. "What is that supposed to be?" The dragon scratched deeper into the dirt. The tunnel line suddenly split open. And beneath it, the creature drew a massive shape. Something enormous. Much bigger than the dragon itself. The workers stepped back nervously. Hayes stared at the drawing. "You're saying, something is down there?" The dragon lifted its head and let out a deep rumbling sound. Not angry. Not threatening. More like confirmation. A cold feeling spread through the crew. For weeks they had blamed the dragon for damaged equipment and scattered cargo. But now Hayes looked again at the underground scan on the drill panel. The strange heat pattern. The unstable ground readings. Suddenly the destroyed equipment started to make sense. The dragon hadn't been attacking their machines. It had been trying to stop them from digging. One miner swallowed hard. "Boss. What if it wasn't sabotaging us?" Hayes looked back at the massive creature standing beside the drill. The dragon slowly placed one claw on the ground, directly over the spot where the drill was boring into the planet. Its glowing eyes met his again. This time there was no curiosity in them. Only urgency. Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. Because the message suddenly seemed very clear. They weren't mining into empty rock. They were digging straight toward something far worse. And the orange alien dragon had been trying to warn them all along. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The drawing in the dust sat there between them. The outline of the colony. The tunnel beneath it. And the massive shape buried deep underground. Foreman Daniel Hayes slowly stood up from the drawing the dragon had made. "Shut the drill down," he said quietly. The order came so suddenly that several workers blinked in confusion. "Boss?" a technician asked. "We're only 50 meters from the main ore vein." Hayes didn't look away from the ground. "Shut it down." A few seconds later, the giant drilling platform began to power down. The deep rumbling vibration that had been echoing through the yard for days slowly faded. For the first time since the colony started mining this site, the ground became completely still. The workers shifted uneasily. The orange alien dragon remained beside the drill, watching. Then something strange happened. The creature suddenly lifted its head. Its wings twitched. Its eyes locked onto the ground beneath the drill platform. A low growl rolled through its chest. Not the calm rumble from before. This sound carried tension. Warning. Hayes noticed it immediately. "What is it?" he asked. The dragon slammed one claw against the ground. Hard. The impact sent dust flying. Several workers jumped. What the hell? Then the ground moved. At first it was subtle. A faint vibration beneath their boots. One miner frowned. Boss?" The vibration grew stronger. Metal tools on the platform began rattling. Loose cargo crates shifted slightly. Then the ground shuddered. Everyone froze. "That's not the drill," a worker whispered. A deep sound rose from beneath the surface. A horrible grinding noise, like stone scraping against stone far below the colony. Hayes felt his stomach drop. "Everyone back away from the drill," he shouted. The crew scrambled away from the platform. The dragon spread its wings slightly and stepped between the humans and the drilling hole. As if shielding them. The ground suddenly cracked. A jagged line split across the dirt beneath the drill tower. Metal supports groaned. Then the crack widened. A blast of hot air erupted from the hole. Workers stumbled backward. "What is happening?" The ground exploded. A massive section of rock collapsed inward, swallowing part of the drilling platform. Dust and debris shot into the air. And from the darkness beneath the planet's surface, something moved. Something enormous. For a brief moment, the workers saw it. A gigantic armored shape shifting deep in the hole. Long black plates sliding against each other. A creature far larger than the orange dragon. One miner screamed. "What is that thing?" The dragon roared. This time the sound shook the entire yard. Not in anger at the humans, but at whatever was waking beneath them. Hayes stared down into the shattered drilling pit, his face pale. The dragon's warning drawing suddenly made terrifying sense. They hadn't been mining for ore. They had been drilling into the nest of a sleeping giant. And now, it was waking up. The ground kept shaking. Dust rolled across the mining yard as the massive crack around the drill site widened. Workers stumbled backward, some falling to their knees as the earth groaned beneath them. "Everyone to the transport trucks," someone shouted. But Foreman Daniel Hayes didn't move. He stood at the edge of the broken drilling pit, staring into the darkness below. Because whatever was down there, was huge. The orange alien dragon stepped forward, placing itself between the humans and the collapsing hole. Its wings spread wide. Its scales glowed brighter under the floodlights. Another roar exploded from its chest, loud, powerful, and filled with warning. Then the thing beneath the ground answered. A horrifying screech echoed from deep below the planet's surface. The sound made several workers clamp their hands over their ears. "Boss, we need to go," a miner yelled. Hayes shook his head slowly. "If that thing comes out, those trucks won't outrun it." The ground suddenly collapsed again. A massive section of rock broke apart, sliding down into the pit. And then the creature emerged. A gigantic armored head pushed through the rubble. Black plates covered its body like overlapping shields. Long jagged limbs clawed their way out of the broken earth. Its glowing red eyes opened slowly. The monster beneath the planet had finally awakened. Workers panicked. "That thing is bigger than the dragon." Several miners fired their shock rifles in pure fear. The blasts barely scratched the creature's armor. It screeched again and began pulling the rest of its massive body out of the pit. The colony didn't stand a chance. But the orange dragon didn't retreat. Instead, it leaped forward. With a powerful beat of its wings, the dragon slammed directly into the giant creature. The impact shook the ground. Claws crashed against armored plates as the two massive aliens struggled near the pit. The miners watched in stunned silence. The creature from underground snapped its jaws, trying to grab the dragon. But the dragon moved faster. It twisted its body and slammed its tail into the monster's head, forcing it backward. Hayes suddenly understood everything. That's why it destroyed the drills, he said quietly. It was trying to keep this thing asleep. The dragon roared again, driving the underground creature back toward the pit. The two giants battled across the shattered drilling site, tearing apart metal structures and sending debris flying. Finally, the dragon grabbed the creature's armored neck with both claws. With one enormous push, it forced the monster back into the collapsed tunnel. The ground shook violently as both creatures crashed into the darkness below. For several seconds, the workers held their breath. Then the shaking slowly stopped. Dust settled across the silent mining yard. No one spoke. Minutes passed. Then the ground shifted once more. The orange dragon climbed back out of the pit. Alone. The underground monster was gone. The dragon stood there for a moment, breathing heavily. Its wings slowly folded back against its body. Workers stared at it in complete disbelief. The creature they had feared, the one they blamed for everything, had just saved the entire colony. The dragon turned toward Foreman Hayes. For a second, the two looked at each other again. Hayes stepped forward. No one tried to stop him this time. The dragon lowered its massive claw. Hayes reached out his hand once more, and the dragon gently shook it again. Across the yard, the workers of Outpost K-47 watched the moment in silence. Because they all understood something now. The most hated creature on the planet had never been their enemy. It had been their guardian all along. And the simple handshake between a human foreman and an alien dragon had become the moment that changed everything the colony believed about the universe. Rocket.